Before the reading, let me tell you about our reader and our speaker, Helen Montague Foster. And Helen didn't write this, I did. If there's a superwoman amongst us, she is her. Helen's a doctor of psychiatry with years of working with folks in Richmond area who experience very challenging life experiences. She's been Professor Foster at Medical College, Virginia. If I have any of this wrong, tell me. Dr. Foster toured private practice patients as well as those served in MCV's clinical settings. She has retired, but she is not done. She's a published author. Professional works from earlier, and more recently in retirement, she's recognized as a novelist, carrying a bit of personal experiences and stories buried in her page-turning books, and her novels are really, really good. She's a naturalist who spends her days paddling local waters and hiking and communing in the natural world she and Tom call a second home. A seasoned nature photographer, a mother, grandmother, wife, and unending support to attorney husband Tom. And she's one of us. Helen, you're reading.
Well, thank you, Selene, for that wonderful introduction. Oh my gosh. You didn't even mention our Thompson Light adventure last night when he was a great help to me tugging our canoe along the river after we almost got capsized.
That's what a true naturalist does.
So here's a reading. I'm not going to read the second part of this because Selene has already read a bit of that, but I will just read the first poem. There you go, old dog, tummy up, waiting for a rub. You trusting mutt, but is it fear that flips you belly up to say, please don't harm me, please. I mean no harm. I've been there too. Amid thunder, underwater, I'll dog paddle too, if that's what survival takes. And maybe I'll just repeat this that Selene already read, which is the quote by Helen Keller. Security is mostly a superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children of men as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. Helen Keller. And here's a picture that I like, and it says, everything will kill you, so choose something fun.
Oh, don't start sounding like Johnny Ernst now. Now a moment of silent reflection. And courage.
Thanks, Elaine. So early on, when Marley asked me to speak, I thought, what in the world am I going to say? She asked me if I could share something about creativity, maybe my creative process. And as I thought about my creativity, I realized that what I really had to speak about was vulnerability. And that I could do that because I trust you. I trust all of you here at UUFR. I decided that even before I heard Marley's powerful talk about kintsugi, which I watched on Zoom, which reaffirmed my decision that for me, vulnerability is really necessary for creativity. Paulo Coelho writes, the strongest love is love that can demonstrate its fragility. And Brene Brown writes, again, I'm kind of repeating some of the things that I appreciate Selene said because they're good for emphasis. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy. In a bit, I'll tell you a little bit more about what inspired me to write the dog poem and got me thinking about belly up kind of vulnerability. And meanwhile, here's a cover blurb from a Brene Brown book. There was just recently an article about her in the New York Times, which is interesting. She's turned to occupational psychology, advising companies and on how their employees can get along together. But this is a cover blurb from one of her books. Vulnerability has become synonymous with weakness. Yet, vulnerability is not weakness at all. It is our strongest connection to our humanity and to each other. So back to my creative process. And as much as I wish that a goodly portion of my recurring decision to write fiction wasn't motivated by self-protection, I realize that that is only partly the case. I do want to protect my patients' confidentiality. They were able to do psychotherapy work, trusting that I would keep their confidences, and they really had to be vulnerable in order to do that. And there's a certain pain and pressure generated by witnessing other people's pain, but writing gives me something productive to do with that pain and whatever force came with it, and I carry inside me. But back to the idea of just self-protection. Shame is really painful. And in the 1980s, right around the time there was a backlash gaining momentum against psychoanalytic psychotherapy, I attended an international psychoanalytic meeting in Washington, D.C. on the topic of schizophrenia. At some point after the plenary session, we broke into small groups, and I joined the room with a psychoanalyst named Thomas Ogden. I may have still been in my training. I'm not really sure. I could have been in my last year of residency, in which case it was my 4th year of residency training, and I was one of 2 chief residents in the Department of Psychiatry at MCV. Or I might have been in an early year of practice. Don't remember exactly. Dr. Ogden was a really excellent speaker who obviously cared about his patients. And in a breakout session, under the protective aura of his presence, and he had a very kind, protective presence, I disclosed something that I don't ordinarily bring up without careful forethought. And that is that in 1964, the year I graduated from high school, I was diagnosed with incipient schizophrenia, and I was hospitalized. A hush fell over that small group when I said my diagnosis aloud. I may have added that the treatment that worked for me was psychoanalytic psychotherapy, which I incorrectly assumed would be kind of a welcome statement in a psychoanalytic conference on schizophrenia. I don't remember the details of what I said, but I do remember that a hush fell over the group, and then there was kind of a strong reaction. These like people exchanging eye-rolling glances. 2 women from a psychotherapist from Norway who had been really friendly prior to the small group avoided me for the rest of the meeting. Every time I walked near them, they walked away from me and turned their heads. The discomfort in that room was just as palpable as the papers in our lab during the program. I mean, it was, you couldn't ignore it. My disclosure just slam shot the dialogue in that meeting. It was as if all of the psychoanalysts there and all the therapists there thought they wouldn't be able to speak freely with me in the room. what if we upset her? What if we say the wrong thing? So I apologized to the members of the group for making them uncomfortable. I apologized when I sort of realized that I was really putting the damper on their conversation. And I remember Dr. Ogden's kind, boyish face. And he said that obviously I had a kind of attunement to others that people in the throes of schizophrenia usually lack. I don't remember much more about the small group. We sat on folding chairs and we ate box lunches. I think I may have offered to step out, but this was long ago, and I don't recall if I left the room. Just that it was so painful having those women from Norway walk away every time I approached them. I struggled with wishes to have them know that I was a long-married doctor, mother of 2 children, that I earned the highest score in my medical class on part 2 of national boards, silly things I wanted them to know. I wanted to know that I had not been re-hospitalized psychiatrically since my provisional diagnosis in 1964, that I never abused substances, that I was on no psychotropic medication. I did not want to tell them that I had been sexually abused in childhood. That was my reaction to the shame that their distancing evoked in me. So I'm going to be 79 this month. These are still emotionally important things to me. I recently Googled Dr. Ogden, and I found out that he is exactly my age, and that his career choice was affected by the fact that his mother, who had a lot of emotional problems, was in psychoanalysis in his youth, and that she profited greatly from it, and in his thinking made her a better mother and made her have a better life. After the meeting, I bought one of his books, and I was charmed by his opening thoughts were about writing, which I think he compared to time travel or maybe to mental telepathy. The written word can convey messages to people in other places and in other times. And it brings us messages from people in other times. So that's what I want to do. I want to share some messages from my other times and places. The poem that I wrote about the submissiveness of dogs came out of my observations of humans with dogs, sure, but also out of an encounter with a little less popular species, a less loved species than dogs. Few people really would like to think that their pets submit to them out of necessity rather than purely out of love. What does it actually mean when a pet turns over for a tummy rub? They may really enjoy the sensation, but why do children let us tickle them? They may really love being tickled. They may hate it. Is it an affirmation that we will accept their submissiveness kindly and protectively? Not all belly showing is joyful. Some is a demonstration that whoever's doing it is no threat. We aren't going to harm you, so there's no need to harm us. And some dogs will tolerate a belly rub that they don't enjoy in order to accept their low power role in our families. Meanwhile, it's easy to care for a submissive baby in almost any species. Those cute round eyes, the cute faces. Who doesn't love a fawn? I mean, they're so cute. Baby animals are just darling. So evolution has taught a lot of baby animals that they're in better shape if they act submissive, or if it's a fawn, if they just freeze and let us do what we will. If they're born in our backyards, whatever, they just hope we'll protect them. Likewise, we as older people are more likely to survive if we're part of a caring community like this one that can accept us and our vulnerabilities. At times, revealing vulnerabilities is voluntary, but childhood, illness and old age give us a lot of involuntary vulnerabilities. So once rats invaded the home where Tom and I lived with our 2 children and old dog, we were in the habit of leaving Zach in the shady fenced backyard when nobody else was home. He preferred spending time under our back deck to using his doghouse or the children's playhouse, or even the area of our deck where we left his water and food that was sheltered by a roof. He lost his hearing and he stopped being able to defend his food. We stopped leaving kibble out there. We started substituting milk bones. We figured the squirrels wouldn't steal milk bones. So as time went by, we actually observed squirrels lugging large dog-sized milk bones up trees. They were as long as the squirrels were, really huge. They still, just putting a milk bone instead of kibble, but no, that didn't help a bit. So he didn't have much of an appetite, old Zach. So we usually kept a bowl of his food in the kitchen, for, when he was up to eating a little bit. And eventually a rat tunneled under the concrete foundation of our brick and concrete front porch, into our crawl space, and where it commenced to raise a family. And the rat and its family quickly learned how to follow our drain pipes up into our kitchen where they could help themselves to Zach's food. And one night we intruded upon, it was so nice that he was eating his food again. He was so skinny though. So one night we intruded upon a squirrel-sized rat eating Zach's food. And Tom gave me our son's karate sword. And he chased the rat. And if you can just imagine this, like we're in our kitchen, I've got this big wooden karate sword, and the rat, I thought it was doing okay. I opened the back door, for the idea we were going to chase it outside at least. And or I don't know, maybe Tom was going to kill it. Were you going to kill it, Tom?
I was on it, yeah.
Well, anyway, I opened the back door. It ran over my foot. I screamed. Somebody later said to me, well, I wouldn't want you with me in combat. Anyway, it got out. And so, why do I share that story? Rats are smart. They want to raise families. They want a place to raise their families. They have to eat. And sometimes protecting ourselves means that we don't recognize the sentience of others. I really like the Native American attitude about that. If it's necessary to shoot game, at least we can be respectful of the animal that died and not just enjoy killing. But probably every one of you realizes that individuals are socialized quite differently about where and how to share vulnerability. So what's oversharing? When do we try to teach others how to be tough and endure criticism? You don't have to go to VMI to be on some kind of a rat line. When you demonstrate ignorance or you deviate from the standards of your group, or you just are not up to what you're supposed to do. I remember getting smacked with a scalpel by a surgeon because I wasn't holding the retractor just right. There are all kinds of things that people go through when you get socialized into your profession or your group. Obviously, sometimes it's not wise to share our vulnerabilities, but when will you be attacked for your weakness? We kill the rat. Obviously, sometimes it's really unwise to share vulnerability, but it's also what brings people close. And so I have done a lot of thinking about how submissiveness and vulnerability are linked I don't really want this to be a talk about semantics, but I think a vulnerability is revealing tender parts of ourselves for intimacy rather than as submissiveness that's just part of a social order for survival. And these are all things that impact our lives, our families, and our emotional core. For me, the intensity and power that goes along with that works for my creativity. It just sort of makes things pop into my head that I have to write about. And I don't think I'm alone about that. There's nothing like, a wellspring of emotion to inspire a poem or something in the visual arts or a painting or a song or something in the performance arts. It just, our hearts inspire creativity. And when our shame shuts other people out, we really might miss noticing that they're ready to care about us. I remember once suggesting to a young man that he look in the eyes of the people he saw, because some of them were very ready to care about him, but he thought nobody cared about him. But sometimes their eyes said, "Oh yeah, I'm hoping you'll notice me." And I also wanted to get into differences in expressions of vulnerability between men and women, which all of you are aware of. So if a man is at a stage in his life when he's socialized not to show weakness, he might say to his female partner who wants to know why he's sad or, what's wrong, "You don't want to know." And she might say, "Well, yes, I do." Because she thinks she knows, and she's right, better than he does what she can tolerate. However, he doesn't know, she doesn't know what he was going to say. And it really might be something that would distress her. So each of us is an expert on ourselves. And that leads to a lot of conflict, but it also can lead to a lot of intimacy when we sort of think about it. When really can we trust another person to say when they really do want to hear something? So as far as oversharing, that's when the other person doesn't really consent to hearing. So it's valid to choose those in whom you confide. And late in my own psychoanalytic treatment, the doctor I was seeing shared the great respect he had for people who've gone through psychoanalysis, because inevitably there's a lot of pain involved in that process. You just have to go through it. It's very painful. It means that the word is that you have to try to say everything that comes into your mind, no matter how painful it is. Well, who can do that? There are all these things, and you open your mouth and nothing comes out. You just are not going to say those things. It takes a lot to get those things to come out. And so what do you learn? You learn about how your anxiety works. You learn about how your fear works. You learn what you're ashamed of. So did I ever hear things from patients that shocked me? Yes, of course I did. But all I had to do was just sit tight and be supportive and care about them, which was pretty easy because they were trying to be vulnerable. But it's really not that simple when it's somebody you live with, when it's a loved one, when it's a family member. I mean, which grandparent do you come out to? And what do you come out about? And maybe some people can hear things and other people can't. What if a loved one, something that they want to confide evokes a visceral reaction in you that might bring him or her down? Sometimes maybe in those times things are better not shared, but other times it is what brings you truly close. So one stereotype of therapy that has more than an ounce of truth is that if somebody confides something in treatment and then they discover it's not so bad, it'll just be this great relief and phew, you're cured. Like it wasn't your fault, your brother drowned, Or it's normal, everybody does that, everybody has that. Or it's outside of your control. Well, actually, you were the one that started the mission that you sent that person on who got killed. It wasn't, you didn't start the war. You were sort of like other people, just caught up in it. Can you imagine being an ICE officer? I mean, I don't imagine those are people who are like really heavy on vulnerability, or they wouldn't enlist. But maybe they need a job. Maybe. So if you didn't have power to save the children or something, is that going to cure the pain? Well, not really. It doesn't make it go away, but at least it gives you a chance to think about it with your eyes open, consciously. And of course, the person that you're sharing with can learn something too, and you will get closer. So I guess back to the wisdom of sharing vulnerabilities, it's not a slam dunk. You have to know yourself, which helps you understand others. And we all have weaknesses, and we all have areas of potential shame. And as you know, some people, even those in high places adorned with gold, don't allow themselves to feel shame. And they only respond with anger, which makes them pretty hard to love. Shame is painful, but it has its uses in socializing to help people get along. I mean, you know, is there anybody in here, raise your hand if nobody ever said shame on you to you. Oh, good for you, Eric. That's great. So I started out by mentioning some of the involuntary kinds of invulnerability, being very old or young or being ill or disempowered in some other ways. But some of that vulnerability and the gratitude that grows from it is an ingredient in our strongest love, I believe. So I'm going to read you a poem that was sort of inspired by some physical vulnerability and reminded me of, you know, some love in my life. Oops. Influenza after dark. A rocking chair creaks near me, forth and back, in places where ghosts stand watch. Do you hear the piccolo, so simple in the dark, the faraway harmonica and Celtic whistle, old dogs barking in the night, sitting to seek breath? I see a creak in my chest, grown with reeds through which breeze plays music. This is the song of I am still here. This is the song of I am still breathing. Mother, did you once sit at my sickbed rocking? This sounds like that, these lungs you gave me. Proof. Hear this. You have walked far, dear Israel, yet you have not told your Netanyahu no solution is final. If you have told him, he has not heard you. Wounds bear marks, scars are map songs of wrongs. What use are sculptures, Caligula? What use is a gold-imprisoned daughter, Midas? Will slave descendants lash their sons and daughters, or yours? Who knows our wrongs? Whatever you have done, we have done. No solution can be final. You are proof. We are proof. He is proof that Netanyahu, that Putin, that Midas, they, like we, hiding from their reflections, our reflections. And then here's the more optimistic poem by Jeff Stumpo. And I also say this because of, I think I've read this to a couple of you before, but this reminds me of Tom's and my adventure yesterday on the river. Someone at the party says it's threatening to storm, and I say it's volunteering to storm. I say it's giving away its daughter's hand in marriage to storm. I say it's second chancing to storm. I say it's cathedraling to storm, Grand Canyoning to storm. I say it's inhaling to storm and exhaling to storm and holding the zephyr's breath to storm. I say it's myth-making to storm. I say it's math-solving to storm. I say things until my mouth runs dry, and isn't that how we signal the sky? After all, isn't that how we invite the water in? So, that's it. So, do people have questions?
Okay. On our way.
Well, thank you, Helen. That was very moving. I could talk until my mouth goes dry, but I don't think I have any wisdom that I could add. I just want to thank you for your example.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks so much. Much better being received here than at that psychoanalytic conference.
Thank you, Helen. It was
Thanks, Tom.
very enlightening. I have a question, though. You raised a concept that gets me thinking. That is vulnerability and shame. You know, shame is kind of something that is an external pressure on you, right? I mean, you have to be shamed by someone, and you have to have that kind of feeling, as opposed to vulnerability is opening up. And the reason I was caught by that is, I mean, I often thought, where can I go back in time and fix everything? And I really arrived back, and if I could go back and find the guy that invented the smiley face and kill him, we'd probably all be better off. Everybody doesn't have to feel good about themselves every minute of the day. You know, I didn't get a gold star in kindergarten for showing up. You know, you got a gold star when you earned it. And I think that's something that's missing in our society today is this idea of shame, that you should be ashamed of something you did.
Well, that's a good point. And I think people occasionally use those words differently. Some people Brene Brown differentiates shame from humiliation. So there's the kind of humiliation that means don't get too big for your britches and you're wrong. And that's a part of being socialized. And certainly getting humiliated from time to time for some mistake is a part of being socialized. And the thing is, what are you being socialized to? You might be being socialized to do wrong things. I mean, you might be socialized to be part of a gang, or you might be socialized to, I don't know, be the kind of psychiatrist who locks a lot of people up. You might be socialized to do things that are good and bad, and then the world changes. You're in a different situation. You're in a different situation as a link in a chain than you are, I think. So I don't think that people have given up on the idea of learning. I think there's a lot of data about the kinds of teaching, so that there are some people, well, children, for instance, who might learn better with positive reinforcement than negative reinforcement. So they might have to learn how to deal with other people who are going to shame them or call them names or etc. So that's a different thing from learning how to defend yourself against blows. Then there is, that's not teaching you how to be in a family. You don't really have to fight with your brother unless you're going to be a fighter, and maybe might be good. And there are different kinds of fighting, etc. So I think it's true that we have to unlearn things that we learned early on. So we might be enthusiastic children and we learn to jump up and down, and we love our grandchildren to jump up and down, but you can't do that when you're all grown up. So, I don't know, does that answer your question at all?
It's something to think about.
It is something to think about. We have to go on thinking about it, but I don't think our society is really asking us to give up socializing people not to do wrong things. I think there's a fair amount of study about what works and doesn't work to teach people to behave better. But then it depends on if you're being socialized to be a soldier versus being socialized to be a nurse. You know, your behaviors are going to be different. Other questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Comments?
Helen. Over
Yeah,
here.
Penny. Sorry.
I know. Maybe I should have stood up. Thank you. You have become much more real to me because you shared today. When you talked about what you shared, I wanted to give you a hug. When you talked about what you didn't share, didn't want to share, I wanted to sit with you quietly. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Penny. Thanks.
I don't know if this is terribly germane to what you're saying, but that there are societies that work on shame, like Japan. Now, they have crime in Japan, and they have things that are wrong, but being imprisoned in Japan is shameful, and it's something you have to endure. And we don't have the same idea at all. I mean, shame apparently keeps people on the straight and narrow there. But I'm not too sure because I've actually never been there. So I'd like to get your feeling on that particular kind of thing.
I don't think I have any particular wisdom about that, but that's sort of back to Tom's comment earlier. It's sort of when is shame, or the process of humiliating someone, or teaching them to hold their shame and to combine that with inhibiting their behavior. You know, in a way, it seems to me that's like saying you have to stay low power. You know, like, so dogs are genetically, they've agreed to live in our family in a low power position. You know, they befriended humans, and they got some food from the campfire or whatever, and we even have classes to teach them to behave better and to stay low power. So,
One more question.
This is not so much a question as what I'm thinking. I think it's very healthy to be ashamed. If I do something that I shouldn't have done that's wrong, I want to feel ashamed, so I will change that behavior. But shame, to me, is so much deeper. It's like, I'm wrong. It's like, I'm no good, I'm throwaway, I'm worthless, I'm worthless. And that is wounding and crippling. And so when we talk about the shame, I remember one of my colleagues who was studying shame. She was one of Brene Brown's buddies, and I knew Brene before she was famous, long before, when she was a scared social worker who didn't want to work with people because she didn't feel like she had enough to give them. But what an amazing gift she has in research and stuff. But when I think about this, this colleague of mine stood up at a conference with about 800 people, I think, and her topic was shame, and she wasn't prepared. And she said, I did this intentionally because I'm feeling such shame for wasting your time, for being here, all of that. And the flooding of shame in the audience was amazing. That all of us, at least certainly me, I was feeling so much shame for her that she hadn't prepared. And then I thought, what courage. And like you were saying, the vulnerability of that. It's just, you've got to be really vulnerable to be able, and strongly, vulnerability can be a strength, a huge strength. And if we're too afraid a child or whatever to be really vulnerable and be real, we can never be in a deep relationship, we can never love on a deeply level. And through the years I've learned that when people share what you shared at your conference, I always feel closer to them. When I share my own vulnerability, they feel closer to me and we connect. And that's a wonderful thing, because to me the most important thing going is connection. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that comment. That was wonderful. I so much agree with you. Thank you. Did we go too long?
No. I mean, a little bit. Shame.
No shame.
It's well worth going over. I love to talk about failure and how important it is to fail. And the inventor of Spanx, her father always made her report at the end of the week in that family, how many times did you fail this week and what did you learn? She's made a bunch of money with that attitude. Page 289, Creative Love, our thanks we give.
All right, I'm going to pull Shirley King on you. We're going to sing 131. Shame on. Shame on you, We know this one better. You ready? Love will guide us, peace and us, hope inside us, will be the way on the road from free to giving. Love will guide us through our night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can feel it from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us. Peace has tried us, hope inside us, will be the way on the road from free to giving. Love will guide us through our night. The child's extinguished itself. And sent the wonderful messages that you could see its spirit leaving the room. So we do have the parent thing we will extinguish. As we extinguish the chalice, I share an Indian prayer offered by an earlier speaker, maybe a couple of years ago. I keep it on my desk, and I don't know from whom I am stealing this, but I share it with you with some revisions to address the message today. O great Spirit, whose voice we hear in the wind, whose breath gives life to all the world, and whose love lifts all who experience it, we need your wisdom today. Make our eyes ever behold and our soul ever bathe in the beauty and creativity of the everyday sunrise and sunset. Help us understand your lessons of strength and courage of the natural world, hidden even in the leaves and rocks we step around as we walk our way. May we focus on what is good in this life, have the courage to face down evil when needed, and remain ever driven by and share the force